I'll start. Um, I'll start moderating the concept board. So that means that everybody's gonna see my screen on the concept board. So the idea of this tutorial is to review the assignment, and again review the things that we need to prepare for Monday. So this is a very basic skill that we all need to learn to do it, like site measurement and translate that into scale. It's the most basic work that we are gonna do during our architecture work. So for Monday, you have to prepare one site plan and site section. If you didn't decide the scale yet, we'll do it after this tutorial. One floor plan, same comment about the scale. One elevation, we will decide together what elevation you're doing in case you have like more than one elevation in your building, or your building involves like more than one facade. We are also gonna talk about how to make a section cut. So this is I thought that maybe revising the whole work that you did during the weekend could be useful, and I think the best way is to like do it myself. Like, okay, I'm going and I'm gonna start measuring something and then translating that into a scale drawing. So this is the elevation of a apartment building. It's a very simple building. So things that are important here that we need to consider when we are working on site measurement is like we need to have an idea of the general geometry of the building, like the basic geometry, right? Of course, we all know this is a rectangle, but the important thing here is that this is the line of the first floor, right? And then this is part of the basement. Then we have this terrace here, like a balcony, which is also the entrance of the building, an extension of the first floor level. We can see that this chimney here divides the house symmetrically in two parts. So that means that all the dimensions that we get from one half of the building will be the same for the other half of the building. So maybe we can save work there. We need to confirm that, right? But visually we can recognize that the building is like symmetrical. So very few windows. So the idea is to plan the work here, right? So we are gonna measure this distance, the door, the distance between the door and the windows between windows, and etc. So as I told you the other day, the first step is always going to the site, taking a photograph of the site, start planning how to do this job, where to start, what are the main geometries or shapes that we are gonna survey. This is the entrance. So here we can see some details that the top of the door is also the top of the beginning of the roof. We can also see here that the door is like slightly lifted from the ground. The chimney, it's in the middle of that terrace. There is another picture here of that terrace where we can start thinking like, okay, how we are going to draw these details, the handrail, right? So we need to know the distance between each one of the post, right, of the railing. We need to know how lifted is from the ground. We need to know the thickness of this, the overall height of this from the floor, and so on. These are the kind of things that we do while we are planning. Then turning around the house. And this is another elevation. I think this is the north elevation, right? But we can see that the house is very simple, but still we need to have a clear idea of the features of the house. So we have this shape here. we can get the height of this wall, right? Because it's the same height of the door, but we cannot get the height to this point. But we can always like extend some lines, use parallels, and use proportions, right? So here, if we know that if we get this dimension, which is the same dimension of the height of the door, we can approximate the height of this. So it doesn't look like it's exactly the same height, but it's like probably 80% of this. So if this is 8 feet, so we can approximate the height, the dimension that we are missing here. All these dimensions are reachable. I was able to take them, so that part was easy. Other pictures of the house. In this case, the idea was to focus on the east elevation, not on the west elevation. However, I thought it was important to take a picture of that in case we need to draw all the elevations of the house. So the facade is very simple. Again, is another simple rectangle with two types of windows. We already know that the house is symmetrical, so the middle is somewhere here. If we get the dimensions of this side, we can just like mirror it to get to draw the other side. Another picture of the other half of the building. No secrets. South elevation is pretty similar to the north elevation. So if we have one facade, we can get the other one. Apparently all the windows have the same dimension, have the same location. Other things that we can notice here is that we have this the building is the first floor is extended here. So yeah, that dimension is important. There is an overhang. What else? Well, in this facade, no. So let's go to the sketch, right? So okay, we visit the place, we plan, we sketch a little bit, we got the idea of the main geometries, the main shapes that we need to survey, and we started first step is always sketching the in this case, same as all of you are interested only on one facade of the building, or two or three, but let's say it's just the face of the building. We are not getting into the interior of the building unless specific cases, right? So for instance, if you had access to the building and the interior is much more interesting, or the architectural features of the interior are much more interesting than others, so we will do the interior, as we were discussing with Ella earlier. But in this case, for this exercise, which is similar to the one that all of you are doing, so you see here that this line is like it's cutting the house like 3 to 4 feet inside the house. Can you see that? So everything that is here, in this case, I don't care. All right. So the first thing I did here was to draw the walls. So I started drawing the walls and sketching where the locations of the windows, right? The second thing I did was I took the tape measure and start like measuring each one of these segments. And this is one of the way that you can symbolize this. So measurement lines, you have like different styles. This is the most common. You can use like a 45 degrees line, or you can use an arrow, or the third way is you can use a dot. And the dimension is always going, you can use it, you can put it at the top, at the bottom, depending on how much space do you have, right? Or you can also like put it 90 degrees. Let's say in this case here, let me change. Let's say I have to measure something here. I keep the criteria of the 45 degrees line, but in this case, I will put, let's say, the dimension here. so parallel to this. That is also possible. This is the way that I put like 2 feet and 7 inches. Of course you can be more precise, but you see that this is a very rough sketch. Details that I'm getting here are very few. I have the thickness of the wall and the location of the window, so I'm not shading the wall here because I have a window there. That is not required, but I always like to shade the solid part of the wall to kind of have a clear contrast between what is a window, what is a door, what is a wall. So the way I measure this is, so I started here from this column. This was my initial point, and then I started like measuring the distance here, the size of the door, the length and the height, the distance of this wall. You see that these walls, for instance, is like 6 feet and 4 inches, and the window is 2 feet and 3 inches. My drawing is completely wrong in proportion, right? So this is why it's very important when you are drawing this, you are conscious of the distances that you have in reality. I did a mistake. I made a mistake here because it is clear on the pictures that the distance between these two line points, it's bigger than the width of the window. However, in this case that was not a problem, but maybe in other drawings that can be a problem. So still, so again, segments of walls, windows. I know the building. This is why I know that this wall is here. Sometimes you can imagine the wall is there because you understand that this is one room and this is another room. This is your case. You don't have access to the building, so if you can suggest where you have interior walls. Then the second step was to get the dimensions of the terrace. Since my tape measure was very short, I couldn't get the measure at once, so I had to use references. What do I mean with that? So the same point that I used as a starting point, which is the corner of that column of the chimney, was the point that I used as a reference to take the dimensions of the terrace. I need to get the dimension of this, but so I measure like this. I got the dimension from this point to the end, and then I already got the dimension of the thickness of the pillar, so I didn't have to measure that again. I just continue that to get this second dimension, and I confirm that it is symmetrical. So that's the part of, let's say, that was the easy part of the measurement, because everything is like only 2 windows, 1 door, a column in the middle, and then this rectangular shape, which is the terrace. But there are other details that are also important and less simplistic, which is like the steps. So in this case, what I did is the space that I had here, it was very small to put my dimensions there of the steps. So what I did was I make this like lateral view. This is like an elevation of the step here on the side, and I drew each one of the steps to know like the length, the thickness, and this is a 90-degree angle between this line and the base. So I'm gonna use that for drawing the elevation. Another thing that I thought was another thing that it is important here was this corner, right, of the hand railing. So I extended this. This is a bigger drawing, is a detail of that, just to signal that each one of the posts is like 4 by 4 inches thick. Okay, so this is the floor plan. These are the kind of things that we are interested in, that we need to record and measure. Other things, it's materials. Sometimes, in this case, I have asphalt here. This is the line that divides the green area of the asphalt of the parking lot. So I noted that as well. That is also that you can add, you can put on your notes all the materials that you are finding, and you can also make these small enlarge details of things are you cannot measure here because the space is like very small. So this is the floor plan. With this, what I did is, so then we went to the, I started working with the elevation. So one of the interesting thing, so a trick that I can tell you, and it's very easy to, it's you can overlap drawings when you are doing this, right? You can, for let's say these two are on the same page, right? So I use the lines. I can start projecting lines from the floor plan to use them as a guideline for drawing the elevation. So you have to do that because that will be like much more easier. Everything fine so far? Any question? Yeah, everybody left, so I guess it's okay. So that's it. That was the elevation, but as you can see here, the elevation I didn't make the elevations with right after the floor plan. What I did first was a section of that facade using not only the floor plan but also the picture. So with this picture, the picture of the detail, I use this as a way to guideline the section, to have an idea of how to make this lateral section. I know this is the roof, this is the height of the door, this is the concrete slab, this is the ground. You can use the picture sometimes to kind of guide your sketch. And with that, I drew this. With that in mind, I started like making a sketch of the section. And elements that we need to see on the section are like, of course, the ground. I always like using this 45 degrees shading technique for saying, okay, that's the ground. I find very helpful for reading purposes to shade all the walls, to fill the walls with a hatch, so I can differentiate what is like solid and what is not. In this case, I made another mistake. So my door is actually, if you look at the picture, the door is actually all this, right? So you don't have a wall on top of the door. So my bad. And then you start adding the dimensions that you get on elevation. For instance, the height of the door, 6, 7. The height of the overhang of the roof, 7. Then the length of the overhang, 2. The thickness of the roof here, which is a foot. Then the size of the windows, the location of the windows from one of the sides of the building. So this is the limit of the building, right? So here 5 feet is the distance between the window and that line. If I have that and I have the length of the window, I don't need to measure this again, right? Because I already have that dimension on the floor plan. Of course, the level between the ground and the concrete slab, the height of the railing. So, and I didn't draw all the details of the railing here because the drawing is very small. I would suggest to start making another sketch for working on those details. And this is how you go, right? What else? Any questions so far? I imagine you find all this familiar so far because you were already doing this. What I saw the other day was like you were taking notes in different ways. Some of you were taking notes like here on top of the section or the floor plan. Others were taking like separate notes. I strongly recommend you to take all your notes on here on the drawing. It's gonna be easier to understand when you have to put this on scale. What else? So again here, I didn't go to the interior of the building. I cut the building here, like 2 or 3 feet inside the building, because I focus on that facade. That is, let's say, that is my assigned site. So another, just like taking some of the extending some of the presentation that Kaylee did. How to make a site plan, and in this case it's a sketch. So I will recommend you, many of you already took the dimensions of the perimeter of the building. In this case, the building is very simple. It's just a rectangle. If you cannot take the dimensions of the whole building, you can use the Google Maps to get some references, to get some distances. Google Maps is very imprecise, but still we should use it if we can. So with this Google Map view, what I did was start tracing the main elements that I want you to emphasize on your site plan. Because here on the Google Maps, on the aerial view, we have so many things, right? We have trees, we have houses, we have cars, we have sidewalks or shrubs or, well, etc., etc. For the site plan, the only thing that I want you to detail, or maybe not detail, to draw, is, of course, the building, right? With the general dimensions. In this case, the building is like 27 feet wide and around 67 feet long. I can see here the small terrace, the square, right? You see here that the roof has this texture that is signaling that this is a tiling roof, or that's the convention that we use for drawing a roof. I also decided to add the streets, of course, the lines of the sidewalk. No, we don't have sidewalk in this particular drawing, but I only emphasize the streets and the neighbor buildings. I thought for this case it was important to show the other buildings, right, and not only let's say this area, which can also be an option. Why? Because I think for this case I thought it was important to show like to have an idea of the distance between the houses, to emphasize that this is a very low density neighborhood or something like that. And then these very imprecise lines here, they are showing the limit of the vegetation of the trees. You see that there aren't details here with the trees. I'm not drawing the branches. You can do that if you like. I personally like keeping it like very simple, because the idea is to communicate here like the density of the neighborhood, the location of the house, the orientation of the house. In this case, this is a true north, so I know this facade is the northeast, southwest, northwest, northeast, etc. And each facade has a different criteria for design. So that's the site plan. Any questions about this? Is it simple, complicated? So awesome. On the Google Maps. So you put your cursor on top of the. It's just right click on right. If you right click button, a window will open, and it's the last option. Tape measure. Yeah, try it again. I think was, and then you need to move the end and the two ends of the line of the tape measure. So I already did the section of the building, right, earlier. So it's gonna be easier to make the section of the side section in this case. I already know the length of the building, right? I know the dimensions of the terrace here. I told you at the beginning that having this length, I can know how high is this. So it's completely by eye. In this case, I mean, if there are ways to measure in this with a very good tape measure. In my case, I didn't have one, but for the purpose of this exercise, we are not following 100% precision. We are following 100% well proportion. So in this case, I'm able, with having this dimension, I'm able to determine what's the height of this point, and I know this is in the middle, so I can make this double pitch roof. And because I have an idea of the building, I know there is a slab here and there is a ceiling here, right? And that's it. I'm not showing anything else. Yes, I am showing it. I'm showing the trees. Again, very simple way of representing trees. There are other more elaborate ways. I always keep it simple. Sometimes let's say if you have a house on the back of this section and you want to show that, so you will use like a thinner line to show the profile of that building. Or let's say we have an apartments building on the back. With a very thin line weight, you can show that. Well, you don't need to show as many details as this, but that's the idea. Keep it simple, well proportioned, and decide the line weights. It's very important that you decide what line weight to use to represent what is on the back, what is behind the building, and what is on the front. Any questions so far? Okay.